Industrial and Exporters Conference. President Cyril Ramaphosa, as you can see from the visuals in front of you, is doing finally that walkabout around the marketplace where some 80 to 85 manufacturers in South Africa are showing their wares, showing the products that they produce here in South Africa. He's engaging some of the exhibitors. They're explaining to him about their companies and what they're doing, no doubt talking about the contribution they're making to the economy in terms of the jobs that they've created and so on and so forth. And just referring back to my colleague there, my colleague's insert, Notando Makutulela, basically he was saying that it's very important that government continues to invest in black industrialists and the broader theme of black economic empowerment in order to redress the imbalances of the past, where apartheid and colonialism robbed black people of a future and robbed them of an ability to be able to pass on wealth and inherit and so on and so forth. And so here he is. He explained that this is an initiative that seeks to ensure that black companies have at least a base from which to work from in terms of building up, contributing to the economy, and perhaps one day being super firms, super conglomerates, and so on. Just talking over the visuals with me, I do have in the building, we've just heard a loud burst. I hope that's nothing to be worried about. But in studio with me, I do have Kuseni Dlamini. He's the chairperson of Massmart, pardon me. And of course, he was in the plenary session listening to the president. He's been engaging in discussions, and one of the areas that's very significant, of course, is the issue of supply development. And Massmart has a lot of experience in this arena when it was taken over by Walmart many years ago. And one of the conditions was that they must beef up their supply development base, and they've had to work on that. And they serve as an example of that in this country. Thank you very much, Mr. Dlamini, for joining us.
Thanks, Nompu. It's great to be here.
Great stuff. Just
Fantastic.
Give us a sense of your thoughts around the President's comments and why we have this initiative of the Black Industrialist.
The President's message was very clear that South Africa needs to be deliberate and intentional in terms of supporting black industrialists. Black industrialists are key to the transformation of the South African economy, given our history. They are also key in the reconstruction and recovery program, as we all have to recover from the ashes of COVID. So it's a strategic imperative, and if we are to grow our economy, we cannot rely on the historical structure of the South African economy. It needs to open up. We need black companies that can scale up, export to the rest of Africa,
yes,
export to the rest of the world, go out there and take on the world and establish themselves and conquer the world, just like we see lots of multinationals coming to our own economy,
yes,
to take over companies.
And of course, speaking of multinationals, we know that Massmart is owned by Walmart in large part, and it embraced the ideas that government has put forward in terms of black economic empowerment, and you've specialized in this area of really having a sophisticated process that ensures local production and that local businesses, specifically black businesses, women and so on, are involved in the supply chain. Tell us more about that strategy and how it's worked thus far.
Yeah, we've had a great success in terms of providing opportunities to black-owned companies through the Massmart supply chain. We're intentional about it. We set the strategy at the board level, got the CEO and the executive committee to buy into it. We monitor it on a continuous basis. Last year, for example, we spent 11.7 billion rand sourcing products from black-owned companies. 8.5 billion rand of that was sourced from companies that are 30% or more owned by black women. And we also don't leave the small companies behind. Companies that have got small turnovers up to 50 million, we spent 1.7 billion with them. So for us, it's a strategic imperative in the sense that it also enables us to reduce imports and also increase local sourcing and support local manufacturing. It's something that we're very deliberate about, and we set up the Supplier Development Fund, set up a budget which was committed, which was meaningful, and very clear targets in terms of return on investment.
Yes.
Because this is a strategic business issue, and it has to be managed and treated as such. And that is why we've achieved the success that we've managed to achieve.
One of the things the President referred to was bringing down the cost of doing business. Now, we've just heard about inflation at 7.4%. We know producer price inflation is much higher than that. And we have, some of the other pressures, like, for example, we have higher electricity prices, but not regular or, reliable supply. What are your thoughts around that, given that it doesn't matter what kind of a business you are, black or otherwise, this environment is not really conducive to doing business?
No, you're absolutely spot on. I think reducing the cost of doing business is key in creating an environment that is globally competitive. If our cost of doing business is high, we cannot be globally competitive. And we also cannot attract foreign investors. I mean, this economy needs lots of investment from domestic investors, but also from international investors. You mentioned the issue of inflation. It's the biggest elephant that's haunting us now. Today it's printing at 7.4%. We don't need to be there. We really need to think long and hard in terms of how do we reduce the cost of doing business? How do you solve for the energy challenges? I mean, energy is the oxygen for the economy.
Yes.
Without energy, you can't run any business of any sort. And if you can't run any business, the extent to which you can reduce unemployment, reduce poverty, reduce inequalities becomes limited. So we really need a joined up, deliberate, decisive effort led by government and business to be able to deal with these issues.
Yes.
Because we can deal with them. They are not insurmountable. They just need good leadership, good execution, and removing the red tape and making the environment conducive to business.
Do you worry that we keep on having this recurring conversation about red tape? It's not a new issue. We now have a red tape czar in the form of Sipho Nkosi and all of that. But it's a concern that we keep on talking about recurring themes. In your capacity as chairman of Massmart, are you able to look policymakers in the eye, the likes of the president, and say, can we get a move on this issue?
Absolutely important that we have to be very frank and honest in discussing the issues, because if we don't, then we're not going to achieve anything. And also we need to move beyond this culture of diagnosing problems, think about new policies. We don't need new policies, we don't need new plans. Yeah. We just need to execute on the policies that we have, monitor and measure the results. Where we are succeeding, celebrate the successes. Where we are failing, go back to the drawing board, re-strategize and reorganize in order to execute effectively.
Yes.
There's a need for a paradigm shift, and we need to reset our approach to running our economy and society.
And lastly, some people at home, they might be a little bit cynical and say, yet another talk shop, black industrialists, blah-de-blah, blah-de-blah. But how important do you think a forum like this is, and do you think it should continue every year for us to track progress?
I think this forum is very crucial. It was long overdue, Nompu. Black industrialists are very key. The economy is not transformed. Our economy is not transformed at the JSE, the private sector. We need to be intentional and deliberate in driving transformation. And going forward, in order for us to avoid having a talk shop like this, we need to make sure we set and measure targets. Like now, we're talking about 900 black industrialists that have been supported. What is the target for next year? What's the target for the year after? And also, it's one thing having then these big numbers, but what impact are the black industrialists making in the economy? How many of them are in the top 10 of the stock exchange? How many of them are in the top 20, top 40? Because if it's just about numbers and not impact, then it's not going to be helpful. We need meaningful transformation where we can have African champions coming from South Africa that can take on the world and have their own respectable places in the global scheme of things in commercial affairs.
Point well made. Thank you very much. That was Kuseni Dlamini. He's the chairman of Massmart, just giving us his views on the Black Industrial Conference taking place here. Black Industrialists and Exporters Conference, pardon me. The president continues to roam around the marketplace where various manufacturers of goods are showing off their wares. He's engaging directly with some of them, asking them about their business and what they're contributing to the economy. We are located in the marketplace, and who knows, he may well pop round and say hello to us, and we get to have a word with him ourselves. We hope so. So there he is, as we were just reflecting with Mr. Dlamini there, the president saying that indeed it is very important to continue to spearhead the goals of black economic empowerment. The Black Industrialists program is an expansion thereon, because government had diagnosed that there was no way that South Africans would be able to really garner major ownership in the economy unless strategies like this were pushed in terms of giving support to people who've got ideas, viable businesses, and then enabling them to get funds from elsewhere in order to ensure that their businesses can grow and make an impact in the economy. Very interesting what Mr. Dlamini was saying is that it can't just be about saying we've got X number of black industrialists. It's about ensuring that these business people do grow to a certain scale where they're able to make some kind of an impact. We will have more for you in the course of the day. For now, we are going to go for a quick break.